If you haven't been keeping up with Diablo 4 announcements, we're going to go through 11 of the biggest, most recent announcements or discoveries about Diablo 4, some of which are actually pretty surprising. Coming in at number 1, there's going to be an update on beta feedback and what developers are going to be addressing coming on April 20th. The main topic will be progression and endgame systems in Diablo 4 and about beta learnings. What's surprising is that there are going to be even more endgame features than what we already know about that are going to be announced. So mark your calendar. Now, what we already know about is the Fields of Hatred, which is a PvP zone, the Tree of Whispers, which gives out whispers, which are like daily quests. We know about Nightmare Dungeons. We know about Hell Tides, but there's even more that we don't know about. So I'm really excited to hear what they're going to be announcing on April 20th. In other news, number 2, they're possibly going to be adding a new gem tab so that gems don't take up too much space in your inventory. Now, if you're like me during the beta, you just felt like the inventory wasn't big enough. Even though items have been downsized to take up a single inventory space instead of multiple, like in past Diablo games. Even Diablo 3, items had different sizes, like amulets took up a single space, and then most other items took up 2. Diablo 2 had items taking up tons of inventory space depending on their size, like a chest armor or a big weapon would take up tons of space, but in Diablo 4, everything just takes up the same amount of space, but your inventory is so much smaller than ever before. I just felt like the inventory wasn't big enough. I appreciate how gems can stack, but possibly developers in Diablo 4 will be adding a new gem tab so that gems don't take up too much space in your inventory. I think that's a pretty good idea. I think a lot of the current inventory tabs are just not needed. Like, who is really carrying around that many aspects? I always only had like 1 and then I'd use it immediately. Quest items, I'd maybe have like 2. There just wasn't a whole lot. Consumables, again, I'd have like 1 or 2, not really that many, sometimes 3, but that main inventory tab was constantly full because I like picking up items and seeing what they are. So personally, I think the inventory definitely could use some work. Okay, moving on to number 3, Necromancer Summons luminance levels are not finalized and will be adjusted for launch. Now, you can see in early gameplay clips of Diablo 4, Necromancer skeletons looked a lot more like the skeletons you would find as monsters, but in the beta, they looked completely different. They were much larger, they looked more cartoony, more floaty, and sort of, I don't know, they looked definitely completely different than how they looked in some previous gameplay clips. And in the previous gameplay clips, I was really excited. I thought they looked great. Even in the closed beta, they looked really fantastic. So I'm not sure what happened during the open beta because the skeletons really look just way different. And frankly, I kind of agree with the majority of people. I think, they really got to nail how Necromancer Summons look. You're going to be looking at them for a long time considering, they're really great early game and, they're awesome to have around. You got to have them looking cool. So they're going to definitely be changed from how they were in the open beta, and that has been announced straight from the developers. Okay, moving on to number 4. There are so many more legendary powers beyond what was on display during the Diablo 4 beta. The Codex of Power contains less than half of the total legendary powers that can be found in Diablo 4. Based on comments from Diablo developer Joseph P. Piora, hope I'm saying that right, there is a lot we haven't seen yet. So, we have online build calculators. We went through the beta. We could look at the codex, and there was a lot that was available to us, but it's very interesting to hear that we haven't even seen the half of it yet. So I'm very excited to see what legendary powers haven't been seen yet, because a lot of them looked pretty cool, and I'm sure the ones that we haven't seen are going to be even cooler, because Joseph has also said that they're going to be, quote, very balanced legendaries. Of course, sounds like he's being sarcastic there, meaning that these legendary powers are probably going to be incredibly powerful. Can't wait to check them out. Okay, number 5, if you haven't noticed, but Druid hair color will affect the color of your werebear or werewolf form. Now, this image shows here that depending on what hair color you choose for your Druid, it's going to affect the corresponding werebear or werewolf form. I think this is great. World of Warcraft did something similar in Wrath of the Lich King. Depending on, if you're a night elf or a tauren, when you shapeshift, it's going to look different. But then also, depending on the features of your character, your shapeshifting form is going to look different. And so very cool that they're doing this in Diablo 4. I think it could use a little work because not too huge a fan on some of these different colors and shapes, but I'm glad that, the customization carries over. And also, it would be cool to actually see what you would look like depending on the hair color within the character creation screen, right? So in World of Warcraft, there was the Worgen race, and so as you changed your character's features, you could also see what your transformed Worgen would look like with those features as well. So it'd be nice if they built that into the character creation screen where you can actually see what you're going to look like as a werebear, werewolf, depending on the features you're choosing. In addition to that, it would be very cool to be able to customize the druid's size, so to speak. Now, I know a lot of people are, kind of conflicted on this druid and, their size, right? There's two different body types, right? Which is sort of like the male and female body types, but also there's really no customization to change the thickness of your character. Would be interesting to see if they are going to add that in the future, just because for some reason out of all the characters, the druid is sort of the biggest. Thought that was an interesting design choice that cannot be customized, but no word on that yet. But a lot of players in the community have talked about that and noticed that about the druid. Okay, let's move on to number 6. We learned in the beta that if a legendary item drops and you don't pick it up, it gets sent to your stash up to a max of 10. Miss any more than that and those legendaries are lost. Now this is sort of a cool new feature. I didn't notice because I pick up my legendaries, but if you miss them or you just don't feel like picking them up, then you actually will have them sent to you. It'll appear in your stash, so you don't have to go backtrack later if you miss them. Now in Diablo 3, I definitely did miss legendaries sometimes. You're just clearing everything so fast. You have massive AoE abilities. Diablo 3, your power is so high that you can absolutely miss some items because of how widespread your damage can be. You didn't even know you destroyed a monster, right? And so it'll show on your minimap where that legendary is, and you go back and get it. But in Diablo 4, if you miss it, that's fine. You don't have to go back and get it. You can just have it sent to you. So I think this is a cool new feature. Definitely don't want to be missing items, right? So glad they're adding it. I don't think anyone's going to take advantage of it. I think most people want to get it as soon as possible and are just going to be grateful that they get it sent to them rather than just, knowing about this feature and never picking up legendaries. I think most people want to pick them up, see what they are. So very cool new addition. Glad they added that. All right, number 7, we learned that no leaderboards at launch. So leaderboards, who has the most XP, who's the highest level, things like that. That's not going to be in at launch, but there is plans to have it added to the game later. Definitely think leaderboards are kind of cool. It's always fun to see who's at the top of the leaderboard, check out their build, their equipment, definitely see like what they're doing to be at the top of the leaderboard, get some ideas for your own build. So I think leaderboards are cool. I don't necessarily, use them to be like, oh, I gotta, go faster. I don't necessarily speed run, but I think it's cool to look at who's at the top and what build they're running. All right, moving on to number 8. Clans will remain how they are, but may have more features added later. So if you joined a clan within the beta, which, I'd say most people probably didn't, but it was a pretty minimalist experience. There wasn't too many extra things that you get for being in a clan. Plans are right now to sort of leave it like that, but they may add more features in the future. All right, number 9. White and blue rarity items will have no place in the end game. Now, in a past developer update, we learned that blue items would have the ability to roll with higher stats than other item rarities, like it was in Diablo 2. However, developers have walked back that statement and said that blue and white items will simply never be better than rare, legendary, or uniques, or even set items, because they've said that they have no place in the endgame. So these items are sort of beginner items. You're definitely going to just stop picking them up once you reach a certain level, once you have better rarity gear. So interesting new take on these items, how they're essentially going to be useless after a certain point in the game, which, honestly is kind of nice, not having to worry about picking those items up. All right, moving on to number 10. Seasons in Diablo 4 will last 3 months and be much more fixed so players can plan around them, and developers plan to make it so that Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 seasons don't start at the same time, so players can enjoy the launch of the new season of each of the games. I think this is a great change for players who want to experience Diablo 2 new season coming out, Diablo 3 new season coming out, and Diablo 4, not have to worry about having to choose which Diablo they want to play in which season. So it's great that they're sort of staggering the release dates so that you can enjoy all of them if you want to. And finally, our last tip, the global release times have been confirmed for Diablo 4. North America early access will begin at 4 p.m. PST on June 1st, and then the rest of the release dates will be in the description. You can also look it up online. We now know exactly when Diablo 4 will be coming out. Very, very exciting. And that's it for our 11 new announcements. Hope you learned something new. If you did, don't forget to click that like button, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.